here representing two camps today, and that's Transcending Rail Upgrade Programme, Workforce Wellbeing Lead there, and also Man-B Strongman Events. And it's a pleasure to have Ashley here. Hi, Ashley.
Thank you. Hi, Andrew. How are you?
I'm not bad. And we both share the passion of strength. We've just had a chat, haven't we, before we press record on it. But this is a webinar basically around the benefits of strength. And key to this conversation, I think, is we're not talking athletes here. We're not talking elite. We are talking the benefits of strength for any gender, any age, and the way it can be adapted across, everyday populations, basically. So where do we start with this chat? So what is strength, Ashley? Tell us what is strength?
Yeah, that's a great place to start. So, we really want to know what strength is and what it isn't, because we get a lot of confusion in the space about this. So how does it differ from physical activity? How does it differ from aerobic activity? So let's start with exercise and physical activity, because those two also get confused. So our physical activity is our daily movement that expends our calories. So it's great to be moving as much as possible throughout the day. And these are your walks to the car, your walks to the house, to work, fidgeting. So this is all physical activity, anything time we're moving. But exercise is really a part of physical activity, but it is quite distinct. So in exercise, we are doing something that is specific for a fitness component. So we're really trying to schedule a repetitive session in order to get better in some way. So when we are doing our gardening, we're not going out and doing our gardening with an emphasis to increase our fitness. We're doing it because it needs to get done, or we like to be outdoors. So there's a difference between that physical activity and the exercise. Now, the exercise doesn't need to be in a specific location. So a lot of people think immediately the gym, and it doesn't need to be that. It does need to be that structured, repetitive session with a goal in mind. So that is the difference between physical activity and exercise. Now, strength is just, we're trying now to use exercise with a goal of building or maintaining our strength. So when we put, there's strength exercise, and then there's strength training. So strength exercise is doing something, one session, one exercise that's going to benefit your strength. And strength training is putting a number of those sessions together twice a week, 3 times a week, for weeks or months on end, again, with that goal to build our strength. So a strength exercise is a squat. Strength training is doing that squat two times a week, over many, many weeks. So strength training is simply doing exercise with a goal. So we want to make sure that we're doing all of these activities. So it's really important that that old saying, something is better than nothing, but we really do want to make sure that we vary our activities. Of course, you and I were both very interested in strength training, and that's what we're talking about today. And so strength specifically is the simplest way that I love to share that with the public is a movement against external resistance. So moving your body, so some movement, and again, it could be the squat, it could be a bicep curl, some movement of the body with external resistance. And that external resistance can be your body weight. You can use that for a resistance. Most of the times you're using maybe a resistant band, a dumbbell, kettlebell, barbell, in your case, maybe even trucks, but some sort of external resistance. So that is what strength training is. So that external resistance, that training over time, those exercises put together, those blocks put together. And in that way, then we can be more sure that we are doing something that does actually maintain or build our strength. And that's the strength in our bones, muscles, and joints.
And of course, on this earth, we have this such good thing called gravity, which is a resistance in itself. Let's use it. Let's use it to
yes,
benefit
absolutely.
there. So now you've answered the question, what is strength? What isn't it?
Yeah, what isn't it? So that's, again, a really important question. I do lots of my work in middle-aged and older adults, and it does get confused with people saying, well, yeah, I do a lot of cycling, swimming, hydro aerobics, walking, so that must be building up my strength, right? And so again, if we're looking at a movement against external resistance, it might be a strength exercise. Depending on how frequently you do it, it might be strength training. But we know that some exercise modalities like walking are really not effective for strength building, especially for our robust people that might be watching this. So certainly you're living at home, so you're community dwelling, you're not bed bound. So if you're out and about, strength isn't built with walking. It's certainly not an effective modality. Certainly yoga definitely is another one that I get quite a lot. You don't go to yoga class with the goal of building strength. So that structured repetitive session with the progression of external weights. So you do, yes, you use your body as an external resistance, but that, again, as a robust community dwelling public member of society, we're walking around with our body weight and gravity all day, every day. So that no longer is an effective stimulus for us to continue to build weight. So being under gravity is really good, but it's not enough. And especially for people who want to build bone strength, that takes an even larger amount of stimulus. So if you are hoping to build bone strength, especially as you age, really important, we wouldn't advise you to go walking for that, because that's not going to be an effective stimulus for bone. So bone actually takes a little bit more external resistance. So that's something to keep in mind. So what exactly do you want to build? Or is it the building that's important to you, or is it the maintaining, because you do have a significant amount of strength that you'd wish to maintain? So it depends on where you're starting and where you're going.
I think that's really, really good. So we've got that exactly what strength is, what it isn't. Bearing in mind, obviously, walking, yoga all have their specific benefits, but we're talking strength here. And particularly when we look at bone strength, life, longevity, some of the issues we may get when we get older, or even when we're younger, in terms of those breakages of the bones, getting them denser, stronger. So basically, we need to be producing enough force progressively to load up those muscles to adapt, and bones and everything else, which is amazing. And of course, physical activity, you know, we've heard it coined this a lot of times, is almost a miracle cure. We always say this, don't we? If the pharmaceutical industry could capture the benefits of strength, shove it in a pill, be billions made, wouldn't there?
They're trying to. So actually, when you do these muscle contractions against external resistance, there are molecules that are released from our muscles, and they are trying to pill that up. But we have been unsuccessful. So we're going to have to do strength training.
Yeah. So the basic message is we need to be producing that force. And of course, there's a lot of other benefits, isn't there? You know, if you're in a gym environment, if there's a group of friends, there's social connections that come from that, you know, physical activity, strength training. So there's so many other benefits a pill could never give us, to be honest. But we're always looking for the complex solution out as a society. Let's get it in a pill. Let's pop this pill and everything happens. When actually what we could be doing is doing some of these routines, learning about it, but, you know, working against the force at home in the gym or wherever it is, and getting some real benefits that live through us the life course, really.
Yeah, I mean, pills come with so many downfalls, right? First of all, they're going to be expensive. You're going to have to take them lifelong. You're going to have side effects. I mean, all good side effects come from being physically active and strong. So you're going to have, like you mentioned, if you're doing it with friends or family, you're going to have that social impact. You're going to feel more confident. You're going to have more energy. These are all things that a pill could never provide us.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. And in terms of bringing it back to the workplace, then, so musculoskeletal health, that is, you know, up there with mental health in terms of absence rates. We've heard the government and Jeremy Hunt in particular with the budget announcing all sorts of different support to keep people in work or get people back to work quicker. How can strength help in terms of just keeping our musculoskeletal system in tip-top shape as we age?
Yeah. So a few reasons that strength training can and will really help. So the top reasons why people are coming out of work are those MSK issues that you mentioned, the mental health, the fatigue, the burnout, even in menopause. So more and more women actually just don't feel supported enough to stay in work. And surprisingly, these are all things that strength training fixes, so we're going to have more resilient bones, muscles, and joints. So that's going to protect us partially from our sitting all day, right? So if we have that resilience, we are able to better manage that. Strength training has been shown again and again to improve mental status, mental health. You feel more confident. And if you're doing that with people or outside, it's even better. So that's kind of those hitting those top two right away with strength training. We know that even it's helpful to reduce that prolonged sitting that we all do. So we're all sitting for that 10, 12 hours, depending on our work. And just getting up and doing some body weight squats to get the muscles contracting, to get the blood flowing, has been shown to reduce heart rate, blood pressure, cognitive fatigue, all these things that really does slow down our work. So if we actually find ourselves, reading the same sentence over and over again because it just is not hitting, we're just mentally fatigued, taking a couple of body weight squats and coming back to it, we will feel more energized and more productive when we get back. So it is something like take some time away from the desk, as simple as 10 minutes, doing some strength exercises. Those endorphins boost our energy, our mood right away. We come back productive, and we can actually taking that time out brings us more productive when we get back. So it's
Actually, you've just validated that, it's an ongoing joke with my colleagues. When I have been doing Teams meetings and that we broke off for a coffee, I said I'm going to do some squats, and I have, and they're all laughing. But it's about normalising. For me, when I say that, yes, it does have a bit, oh God, Andy, However, it normalizes it, naturalizes it, it becomes part of the conversation. Why wouldn't you, get your body fired up? It's like it's in idle mode, like a car. You're revving it up a little bit because you've got away from this. That's how I see it. I'm revving it up a little bit because I know that it's going to be a sit down day, and why not normalize it? So that's brilliant. And they're the biggest muscles in the body, aren't they, the legs? So you're hitting it.
Yeah, the biggest ones, right? And so if we even know that if you sit all day, the blood pools in your ankles. So, you might see some ballooning of your lower limbs, your ankles. That blood has just been sitting there all day, and that leads to vascular dysfunction. And that really does put stress on our heart. So it's a really thing. And I think that normalization is going to be half the battle. If people can just understand, this is something that everybody does. This is just something that is normal and something that is really beneficial for us in the workplace, sitting all day. I applaud your work in this area.
I've got one for you. I'm going to tag them in this as well. Brawn Medical, a company that I used to work with in Sheffield, on a weekly basis. When the fire alarm went off, we used to do a Mexican wave across the open plan office. So it had two outcomes. Once it raised the profile of, if there was an emergency, you need to stand up from a safety point of view, but from a well-being point of view, everybody had to stand up as well and just do that Mexican wave. It was a bit of fun. Okay. Everybody moved up. So Brawn Medical there, 2016. I always remember that initiative. So another thing, and I'm just going to sort of drill down a little bit to the workplace stuff here. There's something that I'm aware of. So when you sat down, presumably, your hamstrings are shortened. They're in a position where they are shortened for a long period of time. So cumulatively, does that position of shortening hamstring then cause pulling on the back, hip flexors, things like that?
Yeah, so it goes along with that MSK issue that we're having, right? So we're going to start now seeing all sorts of, shortening at the beginning, and then that's going to end up in pain, right? So then walking around is going to be painful because you're not used to that anymore, and you've actually weakened all of those muscles, those sitting muscles. They're just sitting there, so you're not taking any effort to strengthen them or build the resilience there. So yeah, all of that shortening eventually leads to weakening, eventually leads to really pain and discomfort in doing normal activities of daily living. So again, yeah, lower back pain is another one that we get a lot with sitting. And again, yeah, we're just not building that strength and resilience over and above to protect us from some of these other these problems with sitting. So we need to always think of, you want to have more reserve in your bank, in your strength bank, right? You want to build more reserve than you're going to need for your daily living. So yeah, if we do not counteract that with strength and with exercise and physical activity, yes, we were going to get a lot of those MSK issues and yeah, injuries, low back pain, knee pain, hip pain, all of that.
So in strength terms, there's not always a lot of truth in old wife tales, but the use it, lose it probably is right here as well.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
surprisingly, this one does still reign as something that is truthful. So yeah, if you don't use it, you will absolutely lose it. So we are always in a state of flux. We're either building or destroying. So in our muscles, in our bones, we're either, we're trying to maintain this balance, but if we are never using it, that balance really goes. And so we're no longer building because we're not doing any stimulating exercise to build something. So our body just takes it away, uses it for other things. So we're always either building or destroying. And so, yeah, if we do not do strength training, we are going to lose it.
Brilliant. And we had a chat before this, didn't we, about how we're going to sort of run the webinar. We said we're not going to script it because me and you, when we talk, we just thought we're just going to record a conversation really with questions, and it's going well because this is what it's about. It's authentic. We're having a chat. So not to put you on the spot, but conversely, if we look at the other population of people that are working, so people that are in physical roles already that are quite physically demanding, how do we alter the dose of strength training to work in their favor of keeping the musculoskeletal system in tip-top shape, for example?
Yeah, and surprisingly, we have some research to say that being in a physical job is not enough. So we know that it's very physically demanding. So you are using your body against gravity and maybe you are lifting heavy things. But actually, that is not the beneficial type of strength training. So we have research to say that actually, if you are being very physical in your job, you still need to have that leisure time outside exercise, that structured repetitive exercise to build again that strength and resilience you need to go back to your job. Because if again you don't have the muscle strength, the bone strength, the joint strength to go to your job Monday through Friday, constant 8 hours, lifting, turning, bending, you just don't have that strength, you're going to get injured because you're going to overestimate your capacity in that sense. So we know that we do need to get people who are active in their jobs as well as inactive in their jobs, both doing strength training. So there should be really no difference here. We should still be maintaining our strength and resilience and having the capacity to perform our jobs. And in sitting, it is that resilience to bounce back after sitting all day. And in physical jobs, it is to have enough strength to be able to pick up those boxes without losing our form and therefore, seeing back issues or hip issues and those kinds of things. So we actually still recommend that people in physical work do strength training.
I personally think, I've thought about this for a long time in terms of traditionally how we approach and teach manual handling. Strength and conditioning is not even in that syllabus, and it really should be, just in terms of even load, how close it is to your body and stuff like that. The technical aspects of Olympic weightlifting, for example, are really interesting when we look at not just the technique of lowering, but actually strength and conditioning, the resilience, like you said, the reserve that we feel built up so that we can still do those jobs. What do you think to it missing out on manual handling?
No, it absolutely needs to be a part, because when we do Olympic weightlifting and those things, our technique is really sound. but we don't give that to people who are doing that every day, all day. It makes no sense, really, when you do think about it that way, that we really need to be instilling these techniques into our manual handlers, just the way that we would Olympic athletes. They're lifting lots of load a couple of times a week. These guys are lifting maybe not so great a load, but they're doing it over and over and over again. And if you just don't have the strength and the capacity to do so, you are going to get fatigued and you're going to lose your form. And that's when injuries happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a really interesting topic as well, because every time we, strength is unfortunate in some ways because it's always got misconception attached to it, back from the 80s or even before that, your Arnie's and everything else is very male dominated. The gyms were at one point, let's be honest, the gyms were mainly men when you went in. They were a little bit intimidating. Now we've moved to where we've got the big, more commercial gyms, which in some ways have done a good job. You walk in those gyms and I see all age ranges. I see a lot more women, but still there's a misconception there from women. Well, what is strength? Well, it's for blokes. It's not for me. Yeah, actually, there's some huge, unique benefits. You touched on menopause earlier that this can bring women. What are those? And why should women get on this bandwagon and really champion strength?
I mean, women really should champion strength. So we really do need to change our culture, our views on how important strength is, and how women can really get involved. And I agree, we have come quite a long way. I do unfortunately always hear Arnold's name. Why should I do strength? I don't want to look like Arnold. Oh my gosh, if I touch a barbell, am I going to blow up and look like Arnold? So women still do have that misconception that strength training blows up muscles, gets them really bulky, and that's not the look that some people are going for. So they tend to avoid it. So I want to say right now that when women strength train, they do not get bulky. That is not something that happens. It's quite hard for women to build that amount of muscle, and especially as we age. So as we're young, it's easier to build muscle, certainly for young boys. But women, even young women, it's really, really hard to build muscle mass. And so unless we are taking, supplements that are quite illegal, we will not be building that type of muscle mass. So that is something that we really need to get over and continue to fight against. But again, that muscle mass and strength training is going to be so important. So we really want to build that bone strength to prevent us from getting osteopenia, osteoporosis, falls, fractures, hip fractures when we're older. And it's much easier to build this stuff when we're young. So I'd really like women to start as early as possible and build that lifelong habit. If we do start when we're young, it becomes, again, more familiar, more normalized. It's something that we've just kind of always done, builds into our routine. And that becomes easier as we get older. So starting something brand new when we're a little bit older, and especially when older generations haven't grown up with gyms. These places are quite foreign to some people who are now in our older age brackets. So saying, okay, now you're old, now you should be going to the gym is just not a message that I like to send. I really do want to get people earlier on. And many women also don't know that all of the symptoms that they're dealing with starting in perimenopause, so the hot flushes, the brain fog, all of these things can, again, be solved with strength training. So we know actually that strength training brings down, I think it was at almost 50% hot flushes. So if you're having five a day, and that's really disruptive, strength training brings that down to 2.5 immediately. So there's just so many benefits that women specifically, and again, that confidence to be in our bodies and that presence, that's, so that energy that we need to carry us throughout the day. The social role modeling for our children and the women and girls around us. I think there's just too many benefits not to do strength training.
Absolutely. And this is a really interesting one. We were talking about how do we get strength to cross over to the masses so it becomes the norm, and it isn't this scary thing over there, but it's actually something that everybody can benefit from. So one of the hooks for that, and I suppose this is where people get sort of really focused on the cardio stuff, which again has unique benefits and is good, is the sort of calorie burn, the weight management, insulin response, and stuff like that. So there's some interesting stats, isn't there? You know, if you run on a treadmill for an hour versus weights, you're probably during the exercise going to burn more calories on the treadmill. However, this is this amazing thing, repair process after strength training that goes on for hours after, that affects metabolic rate in a positive rate. Just give us some of that, because I think that always gets people listening thinking, wow, didn't know that.
I agree. This has been, and especially with all of the news and the trending of glucose monitors and watching your glucose levels. Yes, so come on the head, Andy, as always. So doing your aerobic training, you're going to burn calories during that session. So you're doing that. And then after the other 23 hours and a half, you are absolutely not burning those same amount of calories. But when you do strength training, you're burning less calories during the session, but afterwards, building that muscle it's a furnace essentially. So you're going to benefit from having that muscle now lifelong. So that muscle metabolism is higher, and again, you're revving that higher than not having that muscle mass. So having that muscle mass, then we have shown that it does prevent that weight gain, right? So you're going to help yourself with the more muscle mass that you have to really prevent, again, if you're sitting all day and you have more muscle mass, you're burning more calories. If you do not have that muscle mass and you're sitting all day, you're not burning those calories, and probably you're eating more than you're losing. So it's a great way. So diet is always going to be your first go-to, but I think strength training is your very, very close second. So it's that furnace that you want. You want that high metabolism, and strength training and muscle mass gives that to you.
So, I mean, this is going to be a good sell if people have got the idea that you can sit down and burn more calories. The caveat is that you have to do strength training before that process takes place. Absolutely. Another one as well, some interesting studies that are coming out. You know, we've often said, it's either brains or brawn, the distinction between the two. Now, there's a lot of evidence coming out in terms of role of dementia, the effect of strength training, physical exercise on brain health. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that? Because that's fascinating in itself. You did touch on it, actually. If you do a few more squats, you get the blood flowing, makes you a little bit more productive, wakes you up, that sort of good stuff.
Yeah. So again, another one people are concerned about is, developing dementia when they get older. And so actually, strength has been remarkably associated with dementia. And that's just not something that most people in the public put together. Strength training and dementia seem like two completely different topics. And how could they ever, come together? But we don't have the full answer, but we do know that there are those significant associations. So the stronger you are, the very less likely you are to develop dementia or die from dementia. And so these are really remarkable stats. Why that might be? Well, we've got, again, too, whether these cognitive impairments are driven by our metabolic health. So it could be something like that. It could be something like the blood flow. So we do see with strength training, get that significant blood flow. And again, these molecules that I mentioned, they can be released when you're doing strength training. So you have these little messenger molecules that probably do some protection against dementia. And also cancer. So that's another, really surprising one. So when we're doing strength exercise and these little messenger molecules get released, it looks like some of them can be anti-cancer. So, I mean, we've got that glucose disposal. So the more muscle mass we have, the more glucose we can dispose. So it's not hanging around in our arteries, damaging them. So that's one possibility. So going along with our arterial dysfunction, our blood flow, really making sure that those blood vessels are working well, so they're expanding and contracting. If you sit all day, they just tend to contract, like we mentioned, and so we're not getting that transient response where we want to really make sure that our blood vessels are working well, and that body and brain. So there could be a number of reasons why this connection has been shown, but it's a fascinating area of research, and again, we know that strength training does a really good job at more things than we thought it did before. So early on, definitely thought of strength training as a way to improve our appearance, muscle mass, look good. But now, anti-cancer, anti-obesity, anti-dementia, just all of these things that we just never thought. And actually, the American Heart Association has even recommended strength training for people with and without cardiovascular disease, because we know that it actually has more effect on cardiovascular systems than we thought as well. So it could be even on par for some types of people as aerobic training, as good for our heart and our lungs as aerobic training. So it's fascinating.
Amazing. And just touching on that point as well, and this is an interesting one. So Dr. Peter Scriven, if you're listening, I'll tag you into this as well. He had an interesting comment regarding embedding this in more clinical practice. So grip strength is a really interesting one. It's non-invasive. It's really quickly. You've got dynamo, you squeeze, and it'll give you these strength norms. And that seems to be as good as an indicator as blood pressure, or even factoring in other lifestyle factors I've seen in different evidence. Just tell us a little bit more about that. It seems something so simple, yet it's got such good links and a lens into our overall health.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that same research that you're talking about as well, Andy. So agreed. Something as so simple as doing this in a clinic can give us such powerful information, really. So our grip strength is a proxy of our overall strength, and it can be a better predictor of a lot of different things. So I think I've seen grip strength now being associated with at least 14 different chronic diseases, some that we've touched upon, right? So cardiovascular disease, diabetes, obesity, dementia, cancer, and even things like how long you'll stay in the hospital if you have to be admitted. So bouncing back, that resilience that I keep talking about, it's so important. So if you do have to go on to bed rest or into the hospital, you'll be back quicker to normal life than somebody who doesn't have as much strength. So it could be more predictive than those other things like blood pressure tests, blood tests, and certainly much less costly and invasive for some of these things. So I do really think that grip strength should be the next vital component that we do test in clinics. So if GPs are out there and they want to learn more, definitely get in contact with us about that, because it's such a simple diagnostic tool.
And it's interesting, we were just saying before we came on it and recorded it, I ran some sessions, and it's such a good conversation starter, isn't it? It's a bit, it gamifies it. People are, having a bit of a laugh there. They're getting older, but people don't actually realise, the evidence attached to what a good indicator that is. And just like what you've said there, Ashley, it's around. Nobody's invincible in this world, but reducing risk through these sort of lifestyle interventions, strength being one of them. But also, if you are unfortunate enough to become ill, your bounce back ability is massive. Now, this has got massive interest from hospitals, that's reducing hospital stay. And when we talk strength, yes, it's fantastic to overhead press 60 kilo, but the real benefits around that is the functional strength. How does that translate into everyday life? Well, for an older person, that might be lifting the grandkids out the back of a car, for example, more easily. It might be those being able to push out of a chair easier. It's all those sort of things as well. So it's got real sort of benefits right in the home, right from your everyday quality of life, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's no type of strength that isn't functional. all, you build full body strength. It's all functional. So and the exercises mirror everyday activities. Absolutely. So if you think, oh my gosh, a deadlift is so scary, it's literally lifting your children off the ground. It's exactly the same thing, right? So you practice in a gym or at home doing a deadlift. Now you're able to keep up with your grandchildren much more easily. You're able to get things off the ground when they fall. You're able to get up off the ground. Yeah, so none of us are invincible, but these things just really translate so well to being able to do everything in our lives better. There is no strength that is not functional. Everything we need to do does take strength. So simply getting out of your chair takes leg strength. Being able to reach up, grab something from the cupboard, you need upper body strength. And so again, too, like you just think of all these things, yeah, people are lifting hundreds of kilos over their head, but you have a suitcase that maybe weighs 30 kilos that you need to get up into the overhead compartment. So it's exactly the same type of stuff. So you think, oh, that really doesn't translate, or I won't need that. And in fact, if you do look around, you need all sorts of different types of strength. And so, yeah, it's all functional. It's all really benefit. And it's not for the movement patterns, it's for actually getting those muscles contracting. So we get all of the health benefits that come with muscle contraction.
Amazing. I could speak to you all day, but we'll wrap it up with two more questions. But I really could. I think you offer a great insight into it. It's brilliant. So the last two are sort of, do you think really for workplaces, for example, should we be giving permission or giving some time to make strength accessible and giving people that opportunity to maybe do some strength training? I do personally.
Yeah, and my answer as well. But if we're talking to employers, and if employers are listening, we know that people are leaving through MSK issues, mental health issues, burnout, low back pain. So we know that people are leaving. We know that costs money. So I've seen that for an employer of 1,000 employees, that will cost you $1 million or $2 million a year from all of the sickness leave. So if you think about that, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of time off. You might have a health and wellness package. Is it working? Is it enough? So yeah, we were talking about, giving free gym memberships, but can people really utilize those? Do they have the time? Do they have the expertise to know what to do when they get to the gym? Can they get to the gym? Do they have the time? Do they have other resources? So if we can incorporate, again, normalizing and incorporating strength training into the workplace. So just like you've done, right? Okay, stop all meetings. We're doing a squat break. Stop meetings for lunch hour. We're going to do, a 15-minute, 20-minute session, full body circuit session. It takes such little space, such little kit. And you could just think about when they get back to their desk, how much more revved up they can be, right? So they've got the blood flowing, they've decreased that mental fatigue, they've increased the mood and the hormones, they've got now these little chemical messengers running around, the blood flow to the brain, they've utilized that glucose, so it's not bringing them down. And so I think the benefits of allowing that to happen in your workplace versus some of the other things that may look good, but maybe aren't doing as a better job as actually integrating it into your work day. So giving people, your employees, that time of space, and really it does only take 30 minutes 2 or 3 times a day. So say instead of doing the 4-day work week when you give them all that time off, you really give them an hour and a half throughout the week to do some strength training in the workplace. So they don't have to worry about when they get home, they have to run to the gym, they have to grab their bag, they have to, get the kids off to dance class, make the dinner. So I think it's such a great bang for the buck. If you can really incorporate a strength training program in the workplace, to mitigate all of those people taking time off, to improve even camaraderie. I mean, you've got a bunch of your employees doing this that, all together at lunch hour. I think that really does build something special.
And remember, we're the pioneers of the squat fronts, aren't we?
We are.
When you led the squats at the conference, I think that could go viral. I think it could be international. So the last one really is for people that don't know, the strength guidelines around about twice a week, 30 minutes. It could be more than that, but those are the recommendations. So in terms of bang for buck there, right? If we're at home, we may be thinking of the gym, but it's a step too far. What are our bang for buck exercises? What should we be looking at? Maybe 3 or 4 body weight ones. Which ones are they? Which ones do I want to be doing?
Yeah, I love this. So what you can easily be doing at home, and really, if you are not a huge fan of strength training, it really doesn't have to look like much at all. So while you're watching TV at the commercials, you can do your squat break. So really, it is just getting up and down off the couch or on your chair. That's what it looks like. Once you become comfortable with that, I'd love for you to add some external weight to that. It really does increase your bang for your buck even more. So adding that external resistance when you feel comfortable. So that's one. So I always recommend squats because they're such a great full body exercise.
So squats, could we do it with a rucksack on then? So if you want to add extra weight, is it as simple as let's get a rucksack on and just put a little bit more weight in it then?
You can put a couple of tins of beans, water bottles, whatever into that rucksack, and you give your squats and up and down. It's exactly like a back squat. So absolutely. At home, we do have to get a little creative if you don't have any equipment, but that's absolutely fine. So yeah, if you've got a backpack at home, throw some things in it. Every 2-3 weeks, throw some more things in it, and you'll get even more benefit. You'll find yourself even more strong, more energetic. Your mood will improve immediately. You'll get more confident. And I've never really met somebody who did strength training and wasn't happy. So it's just such a great thing. So that's one exercise. Now, when you're at home, the upper body exercises can get a little bit. You have to get a little bit more creative for upper body. They don't work as good without some external equipment. But again, we all know our push-ups. So that's a great full body one. And if you're not ready to get down onto the ground, you do some push-ups from your couch. So onto your couch cushions, that really does take some of the body weight off until you become more strong and you can get down on the ground. So couch push-ups is another thing that you could do, just sitting around while your kids are finishing their dinner or whatever have you, or doing their homework. So that's another great one. The back is tough. The back, some back exercises is really tough without equipment. But if you can do some rows with some bands or something in your hands there, we do want to get a really nice back workout. So bent over rows, if you've got something at home where you can put in your hand, it's a really important one to keep our back nice and straight. And otherwise, we can do some lunges is another really great one where you don't need much at all. And again, that's now taking your full body weight, so that external resistance onto one leg only. So it's a nice step up from doing your 2-legged squats. Now you put all of that weight onto one leg instead. And so you'll see some balance challenges and some strength challenges with that one.
But even if you wanted to diversify that, kettlebells are cheap now. I've seen in Aldi, they have the weighted bags. So, weighted bag, 20 kilo, 15-10, you can put that at the bottom there. You could overhead press it and stuff. So really accessible. I mean, that's a gym membership for a month that you could buy and bring them home.
I really do urge people to purchase some equipment for their home because it's always available. It doesn't go bad. It is such worth the investment that you put in. Again, I agree. Some upfront cash for that, but if you're not going to a gym, that's a one month of your membership is paid for with a couple of pieces of equipment, and it will return in value. So strength training truly is one of the best returns on investment that you'll ever do for your body. It is just, again, it just hits on so many of the things that we're afraid of as we age, and really does prevent us from a lot of these things that we're really trying to avoid. And we can do that super simply at home if you like. Really, you do not, it doesn't need to be complex. You do need to work hard. It is effort. So it is effort, and that's why more people don't do it, because it is more effort than just sitting and watching Netflix. But it can be integrated. It can be integrated while you watch Netflix. So it's not as much, not as much effort as running to the gym. So.
Absolutely. And just to wrap up on, so I know you're going out to Australia and you're a keynote at different conferences, and you really, you are the expert, go-to expert in this space as well. So tell us a little bit about this trip out then, and how you sort of disseminating all the benefits around strength training.
Yeah, we're doing our best, because like you said, there are so many myths and misconceptions about what strength training is and what it isn't. So there's a lot of work to be done in this area. And so certainly we have a lot of work to do. So if anybody wants to come on board and help me out here, but we do need more people in the boat. We need more people rowing towards strength training. And that's, again, normalizing it. So understanding it, normalizing it, getting it into places and spaces that people can really resonate with. So this is the problem with telling people, well, here's a free gym membership, go to it. We just don't have the amount, they just don't have the awareness, the knowledge, and that's perceived, of course, because that can be learned, but we can't expect to throw people into a gym and start doing, all of the things that we need them to do. So so I am heading out to Australia. We're going to do some presenting on some more, some new research that I've got going on, but also a keynote. So thank you to those guys who have invited me out there. And it's about overcoming all of the barriers that strength training does have. And I think that there are significant barriers, but I think that they can be overcome. So that will be my life's work.
Well, thank you for your time, Ashley. Honestly, it's been a pleasure and honor speaking to you, and obviously all the insight that you've given us into the world of strength. And of course, there's more evidence emerging as well that will fill the gaps, having to presume and assume a few things. We know a lot, but there's also a lot we don't. So it's absolutely amazing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, Andrew.
Okay, then.